All right, 2:15. Let's get started. Hey folks, thanks for coming to the sponsor break. We've got three presentations to talk to you. Joe CALIcon at Procertus will be going up first. Tim Stanley from Justia second, and Greg Sarab talking about my favorite mental models for decision making, and he's from Exam 4, Integrity. So Joe, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, John. Hey, everybody, every which way. I hope everybody's safe and well. I'm Joe CALIcon. I'm one of the two principal stakeholders in Procertus. I'm not an attorney, proud to say that, but my partner is. And my partner is Casey Flaherty, who is actually presently one of the lead innovators at Baker McKenzie, one of the largest law firms in the world. And Casey really is the brainchild behind the Legal Tech Assessment, which is our flagship platform that we offer for both assessing and upskilling legal professionals, both present and future, law school students and everyday attorneys and paralegals and whatnot, anybody functioning in the legal sector. Again, like I mentioned, this all derived from something that Casey was able to really shed to light when he was at Kia in-house counsel, and that he started getting work product from his outside counsel that was, beautiful acumen as it relates to legal, the legal, but the delivery was quite awful in terms of leveraging the basic office technologies of Word, Excel, and whatnot. So he was able to go out and assess his outside counsel and wrote a lot about it and stirred a lot of interest. And here we are today as Procertus offering what he did at Kia, but just in a commercial fashion. So is the myth of the digital native real? It is. That whole mantra born with the Twitter account in utero, you are technically savvy. It couldn't be further from the truth. The younger generation or whatnot are very weak users as it goes to the core technologies they're going to use in their daily practice. On the screen there, you see one of our law school student classes, and you can see how well they did on their first pass of the word assessment. And this is not fictional. This is not something we made up. This is pulled right from our system. We see about upwards of 65% failure rate on the first pass through one of our modules. And our modules are Word, Excel, PDF, PowerPoint, and then we have additional Word modules related to briefs and memos and whatnot. And we're expanding our content as we speak, getting into legal research and Outlook and many others, so e-discovery. But those are the present modules, and it's not their fault. And I say they as the end user or the student for this conversation purposes, because if you don't seek out these skills in undergraduate and high school, you don't get taught them. It's expected that you know them. You're working in these tools every day. And it's simply not the case. People open these technologies, they feel like they can get through them. They feel like they know how to bold and underline, and then, they can manipulate margins and whatnot. But that's where error, increases and takes more time. And as we all know in legal, time is a proxy, right? So there's a better way, and we think we've really pinpointed a great way to change this. In a competency-based learning approach, right? To test, train, test. But before I get ahead of myself, what are we dealing with now? It's virtual learning, right? And our application speaks to that. It speaks to in-class, and it speaks to outside the classroom learning, in that it's a web-based application. It's browser agnostic. It's more importantly, and particularly in the education space, it's operating system agnostic, which means it is 100% compatible on Mac. The user can access it anywhere. So it really speaks to the times of supplemental education to benefit particularly professional students, particularly law school students, because all of our content is legal. Moving forward, talking about the application itself, as I referenced earlier, competency-based learning, right? Test, train, test. Do a benchmark assessment. So we have assessments. The assessments move in a linear fashion, task after task after task, and then the end user gets rated on time and accuracy. It's that simple. But the best way to approach this is really to do a benchmark assessment. Let's figure out what people know and what they don't, right? They're both important information points. What they know, you don't want to lose user engagement by having them train on stuff they already know. But what they don't know is even more important. So you give them time to train. So we have assessment modules and we have trainer modules. This is really where we started getting tremendous adoption at the law school ranks in the build out of our trainers. Not only does the trainer tell you if you're right or wrong, but if you're wrong, it tells you what you did wrong. Then it gives you a couple options to learn. You could download a properly annotated document to look at it. If that's not enough, you click a Teach Me button, it brings you to a voiceover and caption video. And then you could take what you learned and then apply it and validate that learning has occurred. There's many of e-learning platforms in the world today, but none of them really allow you to get dirty in the documents, to actually download a document, edit it, save it, and upload it, and then prove that you actually know the skill or the task functionality within these technologies. So that's where we feel we've taken it to another notch. And it's been quite successful. We got great feedback. Our adoption, like I referenced earlier, is growing exponentially, particularly at the law school space. Funny enough, we had a random law firm out of Kazakhstan bring us on recently, but we're in Singapore, Australia, Ireland, England, Canada is a very, very big market for us. And then the States, of course, we're seeing a tremendous adoption, and it's really a testament to peer recommendations of folks that are using us, early adopters and whatnot. And the platform's growing because of the law school community. It's been tremendous. And I think a lot of early adopters can speak to that. They're seeing us roll out modules that they suggested, i.e. the brief and the memo and PowerPoint, and we're getting into Outlook, and we're looking at a Blue Book module. So we grow as demand and our clients ask for it. But what's the importance, right? Is it just so they come out with these skills? Well, not really. It's actually much more important, these skills, in that corporate clients and whatnot are actually expecting it. And what do I mean by that? You see, I took one of our clients about to make big news, the Royal Dutch Shell. They're actually they put it in their panel review of their 65 outside counsel that they just elected, that they have to, if you're billing Royal Dutch Shell, you're going to have a qualified or expert level rating on our modules, because it speaks to proficiency of delivery. So we're excited about that. NetApp's about to do the same thing. And then a slew of law firms and corporates use it for different ways. Outside counsel management, that's what I referenced with Shell. Onboarding, a lot of firms use this to validate that omnibus line item that says proficient in Microsoft Office, on your resume. We always make the joke, what's more valid, that statement or I've read all the terms and conditions, check. So they're using our application because you could pop it up and have somebody run through it. They're using it to craft learning plans, right? Figuring out, again, what people know and what they don't, so they don't lose user engagement. It's a portable marketing tool for law firms these days, as they go through the RFI process, and showing corporate clients how they're ahead of the curve, and they're really cost conscious and effective. And when I mean effective, they have increased proficiency, and a lot of in-house counsel uses this: Oracle, NetApp, Shell, Blackbaud, a lot of big organizations. So, the question you all have to ask as a law school, professor, dean, or whatever your position is, are your graduates ready for, practice? Legal acumen, I guarantee they are, but how to put that legal acumen and deliver it to their end clients. It's always been the assumption, they're going to learn that at the law firm. Well, some of them. I mean, not to mention names, but we've had an AmLaw trainer fail AmLaw 10, trainer fail our assessment. So, all this stuff can be found online, but everybody knows if you don't puncture, people's delusions of inadequacies and show them what they don't know, and then actually put the training right behind it, and then maybe topple it off with making it mandatory, they're not going to do it. And so, to tackle this at the education level is super important. It prepares them. It's going to shine your school in a bright light with stronger candidates. It's proven successful. So, the last note I'll mention is the fact is it's not the law school's fault that they're coming out, because you guys have candidates coming in that don't know this. So we're launching a product for the undergraduate market. This is a trickle down effect. But yeah, I mean, again, web-based, we do site licenses for law schools, very reasonable cost, 1, 2, 3 year licensing. And customizable platform, and we do micro certifications. So kind of a carrot at the end of the stick. Cobot, certified operator of basic office technology, something they could put on their LinkedIn profile, their digital resume, their future legal professional profile. So there's some value there that they could take away from this. Other than the most valuable is the actual skills to work in these tools that they are going to use in their daily practice. So that is it for Procertis. And what else can I tell you, John?
Great. Thank you very much. Hey, there was a quick question that came up. Might as well ask it now. How much is Procertis? People want to know what the prices are.
Sure. First year adopter, we held strong with our promotional price of no matter the FTE, no student size, doesn't matter. It's $4,250 for a year one license. And then we offer multi-year licenses, both prepaid and then year by year, that are actually at a stronger discount. So I strongly suggest reaching out to me for that type pricing. But your entry level is right in or around $4,250.
And that's an institutional site license?
Yes, sir. Unlimited access for students, faculty, and staff.
Wonderful. Great. Thanks. All right. We'll have other questions. Let's move on. The next speaker is Tim Stanley from Justia, and sort of like NASCAR. I'll put on my Justia hat for this talk. Go ahead, Tim.
All right. Let me just share my screen here a second. Yeah, that should be good. All right, is that Sharon? Whoops, go back up. Good?
Yes, it is.
All right, yeah, all right. Yeah, so I'm Tim Stanley. I work at Justia, also a trustee member of publicresource.org with Carl Malmud, and do a lot of stuff with Cornell as well. But FREE is sort of a combination name. It's Cornell and OIA, which they're now working with, also Chicago Kent does stuff with OIA. And Public Resource and Justia. So we're sort of combined into FREE because we all do free stuff. First of all, Cornell, I think I'm just sort of going to run through some of the different sites. That's really what my discussion is going to be. But, Cornell and LII, this is the granddaddy of them all. The rest of us have basically just spent our times copying Cornell. That's really what we do. Maybe we do California versus New York as much, or, they've done a lot of stuff on the codes and the regulations and sort of taken ownership of that. From a free standpoint, if you did think that you own it. But anyways, this is my dog's favorite. So my dogs love LII. There's nothing better. And it's my favorite too. If I had to choose them all, Justia is fine, but LII, that's the best. And it was started by these guys. So this is Tom Bruce and Peter Martin. And, they look at that, got a Sun server there, things like that. Not even using a cloud right there. They're actually using a real server. And, they started it. I mean, they were in Gopher. And this is like pre-web stuff. So I'm sure you probably can go read some stuff about LII's history, but this is what it looked like. It was two guys in a room and a Sun server, just sort of making things go. And now this is sort of some of their leadership folks here. You can see sort of Sarah in the front row, Craig's back there with Tom. And I know it's probably a couple-year-old photo here, but they've just continued to go, and they're doing all types of stuff. And I know they got some really cool things that are coming up, which I can't even tell you about. They're so great, but they got a lot of new stuff they'll be doing with some of the raw law type of things, and we're working on some projects with them, which are really nice. So, I mean, a lot of you guys, if you ever use the Cornell site, I mean, I think a lot of the students use it. I know a lot of the public uses it, and attorneys, probably, a couple of the best sections they have are things like the codes. You might go to the code and just, try to figure out, can you send the Army into Los Angeles or wherever the hell else you want to send it to? Obviously, you can send it to DC. That's been shown. You can sort of check that out, and then you can sort of maybe compare that with the annotated Constitution they have up there. So sort of, it's nice. You get the Constitution, but you also get the annotations. So you can sort of see what different cases, and, sort of try to sort of figure out how the rules will sort of apply to it. So it's really sort of great in that you get both the raw stuff, plus you get the stuff built on it. There's an encyclopedia. There's all types of stuff on Cornell. You can spend all day just visiting the site. It's really, really nice. But, let's say, for example, you're not a reader. You don't want to open the book. You don't want to look at the screen. It's just, reading's not for you. It's just, I don't know, it's just not what you do. You don't read. Well, Cornell also does the OIA site. So they're also running OIA, which is, with Chicago Kent as well, was running that with Gary Goldman for a while, and Cornell started taking over the technology. And this is all the oral arguments of all the Supreme Court cases. So you can go and you can actually listen to it. So I know right now the Supreme Court's putting them online, all the time, but you can go back and you listen to the history of the cases. So you can actually, like old ones, like, cases from the 60s, Roe v. Wade, stuff like that. They're all there. Anything that could come out of the National Archives that's audio is there, and then they sync up the text of the conversations with the speaker, so you can sort of track it. And so it's really nice. It's more than just sort of listening to the audio, although they do have a RSS feed and a podcast if you want to listen to it that way as well. And they got nice profiles of your favorite judges, so you can go in there, you can take a look at the judges, you can sort of see what cases they're ruling on, sort of get an idea what their opinions are like. And it gives you an overview, not just of the most recent judges, but the older ones as well, even the ones that aren't alive or on that site. You sort of go through it. Which brings us, of course, to this week. 28 years ago, Beach Week. Right now, you maybe go to the beach, but you probably shouldn't because of COVID. Or if you should do it, you should keep moving. Don't sit. But back in the day, it was Beach Week. And you know what loves beaches or seals? And this is the seal of publicresource.org. So this is Carl Malamud. You might say, well, who's Carl Malamud? Well, Carl's, he's known as a terrorist because he likes to put free stuff online. So he basically, he'll do it's the Georgia case, which, I sort of showed you a screenshot earlier, is one example. But he also, he's also put up like public standards and things like that. So things involve health and safety, where there's criminal penalties, which are being incorporated by reference into the federal regulations. The Georgia one is probably the most famous one because it was a recent Supreme Court opinion where basically they said if the legislature is going to have Lexis do work for hire annotations and put those into the official code, those annotations are in the public domain. And that's what sort of this case here is about. But this is back when he was a terrorist, and that's the way they were calling him in Georgia before the decision. Of course, the Supreme Court called him a winner. So terrorist pre-decision, now he's a winner, and he got all these annotations out for everyone for free. And I know they're doing some work and getting a real nice mark of it right now that they're going to distribute out to everybody. It's going to be great. Everyone's going to get it. And that's very different than beforehand. Like you can ask Ed Walters over at Fastcase, when he just wanted to license the stuff from Lexis, they wouldn't even license it to him. And so he could take the codes, but he couldn't take the headings because the headings they claim copyright to and stuff like that. It was so that all that stuff has changed a bit. And certainly Carl, relatively well known, got the initial Edgar stuff online back in the 90s, was getting the patent stuff on before the Clinton administration decided to put the patents online. Well, here's another win for Carl. And then there's Justia. So Justia, we just try to put things up. So we have a lot of programmers and we just grab things. Previously, I did a company called FindLaw, which I sold to Thomson Reuters, and then they fired me, and then I started Justia like the next day, and then they sued me. But that was a long time ago. And then I did Justia. So now Justia just keeps putting stuff up. That's all we do. Put stuff up for free. So we put up cases and laws and codes, and we have patents and trademarks up. We got Ask a Lawyer feature. We got newsletters. You get subscriptions for free, all the federal appellate decisions. You get all the top level state Supreme Court decisions, or Texas, both criminal and civil. And then for California, we're doing all the appellate decisions. Comes out daily, next day. And you can also get, if you want a weekly one by practice area, we have weekly ones. Everything, all free. Just sort of sign up if you want it. And we also distribute out to Fastcase and VLEX and some of the other guys. So it's all good. And then we have a lawyer directory, so lawyers should set up their profile. It does, pretty well on Google. Get a lot of traffic on it. It's free, really nice profiles. And then we have Verdict, which is sort of our commentary stuff, which we have a lot of things. And we have things like, Two's Company. How about three or more? Right? That's the type of stuff you'll learn on Justia. Different commentary like that. So there's a lot of things that we've sort of done, but we've got hundreds of millions of pages of content. We also do Latin America and a bunch of other things as well. And we do a lot of work, again, with Cornell and obviously on, public resource and some of the other folks on that. And this is some of the team members at Justia. This is what keeps them going. This is how they look in the office. This is our Saltillo office. And then I figured, if I have a couple of minutes, I figured I'd show some pictures of my dogs. So here are my dogs in the car. This is the Hug Pugs. You might see them on Facebook. They're also on Instagram. So you can see them on Instagram as well. Here they are in a box. It's in the corner. That's Mao in the corner. There's Shiba and Rio. Here they are on the floor of the kitchen. This is when they're looking for food. Here they are back in the car again. It's Mao looking up. Here they are in the kitchen. And here they are at work. And that's all I have. Done.
That's great, Tim. So how much does all this free stuff cost?
It's free. And the idea started with LII, and then other people copied it, like us.
All right. So how does it get paid for? Let me be a minor skeptic when I say that.
Oh, on our side, we have lawyer directory, so premium placements. You know, that's a basic lawyer directory thing. We have, you know, when I'm not doing free law, I'm really focused on making the best personal injury law firm websites that rank high in Google. Seems easy. You got to do AMP, schema markup, make it really fast, know your mobile stuff. So a lot of that. And, you know, CPC, cost per click stuff, Google AdWords. So there's marketing stuff that goes around it. I would say, you know, the core idea though, which you know, certainly I've discussed with the LAI guys a lot, and is the idea that we want to get the marketing dollars going out to the people that put up free law versus going to Thomson Reuters or some of the other guys who would get the money and then they would not put up free law. They put up more paid law maybe, or I don't know, whatever they do with it, money.
I think you're about to say Avo, but they're gone now, right?
No, they're probably internet brands. They're okay.
Oh, that's right.
Probably,
internet brands. Oh.
Yeah, them, lawyers.com, Martindale, and Nolo, and all are all part of their internet brands. So they're doing okay right now. They're doing a lead gen type program.
I also wanted to mention that LII is a nonprofit and can be donated to for folks who want to support the free law that they do.
Yep.
All right,
they're the
great.
best.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tim.
All right, thank you.
Greg, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, John. That screen share working? Is my screen share working?
Yep, it's working.
Bingo. Okay, well, thank you. And for those who don't know me, Xtegrity is the maker of Exam 4. It's used by many law schools nationwide. We're well known for our excellent take-home exam system. And if anybody wants to ask me about that, I'd be very happy to hear from you. Moving over to the presentation, what I am doing here is talking about decision-making. Now, people have been making a lot of decisions lately, and there's plenty more to come. It's a challenge at the best of times, and these aren't those, right? So this presentation is some mental models for decision-making, ones that I use frequently. They're mental models, right? So what are the slides showing? Well, usually these are intuitive processes, but you can draw them if you are, and they're useful for illustrative purposes. If you are literally populating a huge Excel sheet or filling up notebooks with your decision-making models, then President Eisenhower will have something to say about that in a few minutes. President Eisenhower, let's see. There we go. So Eisenhower was considered a highly effective general in World War II. He was widely admired, and he was elected president, and by every measure, a very successful person. He is famous for using this grid. I don't know if he called it the Eisenhower matrix, but it came to be called that. We've got crossing scales, urgency and importance. You would think that things that are both urgent and important, you should get them done. And if they're not urgent and not important, maybe you shouldn't bother with that. And it's natural to imagine that this square here, hang on, I'm going to go for the laser pointer. This square here will be the most important, but on this grid. But actually, if you drill down a little bit and think it through, you realize that the most important square is this one, the things that are important but not urgent. This is where you're planning and strategizing and doing research and avoiding, setting yourself up to avoid crises and emergencies. Eisenhower hung out there, and I try to. And if you are over here, this is where I would put the creating elaborate planning documents. Eisenhower is suggesting you don't do that so much. Okay. Now, similar kind of two-axis grid is this is a common thing called a risk matrix. Clearly, if you've got things that are risky and likely, then you've got a chasm you can't jump across that has spikes at the bottom of it, and you're in trouble. At the other corner, you have things that are low probability and it's a puddle. You're going to be okay. And then combinations thereof. So if the thermal exhaust port team had done a grid and added a few more slices to have some places they could think it through, maybe they would have thought, hey, maybe we should move that Death Star over a little bit out of the reduce the consequences. Since the likelihood is already low, let's see if we can do something to reduce the consequences. Things might have gone a little bit differently, but that was a long time ago. So thank you. So you could take a simple diagram like that and you can make it fancy with gradients or notes or turn it into a giant Rubik's Cube by adding, this third one actually is sort of interesting. I'm pointing with my hand, it doesn't work. You can add another dimension. In this case, they've added human factors. And so you could come up with any other dimension you want. And you could go pretty far with these things, but I like to keep things simple. And I'll get back to that in a minute. So now my next one is, I'm sure other people have got this grid, this graph. I kind of independently sort of settled on it myself over many years, and I call it the riverboat gambler. So what's going on here? Well, we've got on the vertical axis, you've got decisions and actions from very few to very many at the top, and then depending on the outcomes, you got a standard bell curve, right? So if you're not taking very many actions, and you're just occasionally getting positive outcomes and avoiding negative ones, you're over here, and vice versa. And optimal is over here, and I'll get back to that in a second. So who's at this end? Who's kind of too far, right? Well, that's maybe this creature, right? Lies in wait under the sand, catches every single shrimp or little fish that swims by. Very successful, not taking any chances, not risking any negative outcomes. But you got to be a stonefish to do it. That's kind of brutal. Laugh track would be really helpful, John. Just note to self.
I'm chuckling to myself. Sorry.
Your smile. No, your smile. I can feel it. I can feel it through the miles. Thank you, John. And so what's at the other end of the spectrum? The all negative. Few decisions. Better make them right. If you don't make enough very many decisions, and then you mess that one up, you've got your exhaust port designers. One thing they had to do and they didn't do it right, and so it's all negative for the exhaust port designers. And in the middle, right, you've got people who are making a lot of decisions, taking a lot of actions, doing a lot of stuff, very busy. And what happens there is that you can't put a lot of time into thinking it through. You end up with a mixture of negative and positive. Some things are just sort of okay. Some things are more negative, some are more positive. I call that the riverboat gambler, right? Too many decisions. You got a lot of negatives mixed in with the positives. And of course, if you got so many that you're in trouble, you can hop off the riverboat in Baton Rouge and you'll be all right. You could do other things like I'm not going to be Tim about it, but you could focus on positive outcomes to offset negative outcomes. If he would just smile, I'll know he got that. If he doesn't smile, it's okay. He sort of got it. Thank you. We're all good. And then, of course, optimal means, I haven't had a look at my notes. Optimal means, well, you found sort of a balance of plenty of positives, not too many negatives, and you manage your risk pretty well. I tend to find it comes out around here. People have different tolerances for negative outcomes, different patience with making decisions. You can probably start to populate these with people. I find presidents are handy to populate this with, but I didn't do it. So that's the riverboat gambler. So now this next slide brings me to what kind of got me thinking about this presentation. It got me started with these decision models in the first place, right? Everybody's making decisions, and I started to see a pattern. And so the key insight that kind of got me to this point was that in a lot of the conversations, first with law schools and then later with bar examiners, people were in different places, and we were hearing some people saying that they want it had to be this way, and other people saying, oh, we can't do that, it's got to be this way. And I'm trying to think, like, first of all, how come these people aren't working together, and how do I get them together? But the realization, of course, was that people are in different places. And so normally you see the people, are kind of in a group, ideally, right? Obviously, that's not always going to be true, but ideally they're kind of grouped together, and that's in normal times. But of course, these aren't normal times. These are crazy times, and people are all over the place. They get there in different ways. They take a different amounts of time to get there. And of course, they're also in motion, but I kind of stopped it. But you can see, I mean, this is the Kubler-Ross change curve. Most people are familiar with the 5 stages of grief. Those are listed up there, pointing. Those are listed up there if you want to see them. But this is sort of the 7-stage version that's used in a lot of business situations. And I think if you just sort of, you can imagine that this is pretty applicable in a lot of situations. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to move on. Anybody wants this, I'm happy to email it, and I'll give you my email address again in a minute. But I found this really useful for sort of understanding where people were. Now you've got a complex decision-making situation. What's the answer? The answer is to use my last model, which I call the bevel the corner model, right? So what does that mean? Well, you've got to turn a 90-degree corner to go from one thing to another thing, and you could sort of soften it a little, or you could do one of these fancier curves, a double OG if you really must. But you start getting into expertise, and it takes a certain amount of time. It takes fancy tools. Now I'm not going to hesitate to buy fancy tools, but I don't get, I get in trouble for that sometimes. But if you want to get something done, what I like to do is minimize the number of steps, keep things as simple as possible, keep the cost down. And to do that, I have a favorite. I don't know if you can guess which one it is, but it's take one step and then another step and be done with it, right? It's bevel the corner. That's what I like to do. And that just keeps things really simple. If you can get it that way. So that's a couple of things that I use. I hope they're of interest. I'm happy to send slides to anybody, and that's my email. And thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Greg. That was great.
Intentional. Yeah, but there was an oversight committee somewhere.
Oh, you're reading that finally. Oh, yeah. No, it was intentional.
I was doing something, John. Hi, Grace.
All right. Any you guys kind of jumped in and answered most of the questions. I mean, I can sort of come back and make sure that they got aired. Tim answered about the slip opinions. That was a yes. Should law students create a profile or engage in social media? And basically, Tim, you're saying absolutely with LinkedIn. And it's the key to getting jobs and job offers. Yeah, that's what I'm finding. Have you seen any degradation in LinkedIn since Microsoft bought them?
The price went up, but for HR guys, but no, it's still okay.
All right. And Joe, somebody asked about how long it takes for people to get to the point of moving from beginner to expert. And I believe you responded that Word is a 2 or 3 hour exercise, Excel a 4 or 5 hour exercise. Don't let me take words out of your mouth. Great, thank you very much.
He has to unmute. Joe has to unmute.
Oh.
The whole infamous mute button. Sorry. Yeah, no, it's probably 2 to 3 hour exercise for Word. Each module is different. Excel scares people, so it takes a little more. And then, to be honest with you, if you're a power user, it could take you 10 to 12 minutes to go through the Word modules successfully. So that's where everybody wants to get to, and 2 to 3 hour exercise to get there. So pretty good.
All right. So, and Greg, somebody wants you to provide examples of the bevel model for decision making.
I'll give you one that came up, and we had early on, we had instructors in particular, saying, well, I can't possibly give an exam, where people aren't in the class and in the classroom, and so they were trying pretty hard to figure out how to make that happen, whether it was actually recalling them back to the school to take their exam, after they scattered to the four winds. It's not really possible. Zoom meetings and other solutions that are out there, and what I think, once people started digging into that, and in fact, there's been some discussion of that on Technoids a little while back. What people realized was that really the simplest thing to do would be what kind of they already do, which was give take-home exams, and knock back the requirement there. You know, it was hard for some instructors because they really wanted to do things the way they were doing them. You know, but the hoops that would have to be gone through under these circumstances just weren't possible. So that's one of my sort of major examples.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people sort of make a quick dash over to things like ProctorU, cameras that record the student while they're taking the exam. There's supposedly a camera like this one, as well as a camera behind them. So, you know, and anytime they would turn their head or go off, the AI would flag it, and then a human could go look at those flags to determine if that was an actual cheating incident or not. I mean, with thousands of students taking thousands of exams, that's thousands of hours of flagging. I don't. To me, technologically, it doesn't seem like a realistic solution.
People are working on it. You know, it's something that I think in certain circumstances it can work. I mean, we've actually done it for years with several programs where it's a live remote proctor watching while they do an exam, but only in very, you know, pretty limited numbers because not that many really rise to that. And you're right. I mean, when you start doing recordings, somebody's got to review those. The people I've talked to who are thinking they will do that, and it's some bar examiners actually. You know, they're basically resigning themselves to days or weeks of a brand new project, was review of videos. Then, of course, once you do that, you also have to have some kind of a jurisdiction of enforcement and discipline, hearings and appeals. You know, what do you do if somebody on and on, and then of course on top of that, you're developing that entire, you know, new jurisprudence under a time limit, because once we go back to in-person exams, if that's what the bar examiners do, which I'm sure they will, that whole thing is just tossed out the window. So it's not only a lot of work, but it's a lot of work for no permanent gain. And I think once people started putting that all together, they you know,
sought other solutions. ...
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not to say it can't be done, not useful in certain circumstances. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, but it's not definitely not a quick fix.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, what's the name of the dog?
It's Molly. Molly's a new addition to my 4 little children, and I'm just a glutton for punishment.
And I think we'll end on Molly. Thanks, guys. This was great. I really appreciate your support of Cali and the Cali conference. Hope to see you around. Actually, hope to see you live next year. If
wouldn't miss it for anything, John, except some kind of global pandemic. That'd be about the only thing.
All right. Take care.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.